Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to give you my general quick thoughts on the Black Templars Codex from everything I know and have seen from other content creators and what has been going around online. So I hope you guys enjoy. This isn't going to be too informative or too long, so if you're looking for anything more in-depth or detailed, this is not the video for that. Go check out someone like Auspex Tactics or Vanguard Tactics or Goonhammer for more in-depth information about different units, detachments, and more specifics of the Codex. And as a disclaimer, right, following on the point in the intro, all of my knowledge and any little bit of what I'm going to talk about comes from secondhand sources, right? Those sources primarily being Vanguard Tactics videos and videos from Auspex Tactics and some things from Goonhammer and other creators. So I also don't have any prior experience playing Black Templars in a 2,000 point game scenario. I have played at least one Combat Patrol game. I also understand that Combat Patrol, compared to a full 2,000 point or even 3,000 point game, are by no means the same. So what little experience I do have of Black Templars, it is not substantial enough to, I'd say, hold too much weight. Now, my overall thoughts on the Black Templar Codex. I do really like their army rule. I understand where some frustrations may come from with taking Righteous Crusaders as a detachment and making that be their new army rule instead of them having Oath of Moment. I do understand that Oath of Moment was pretty strong for Black Templars, even though they didn't get the +1 to wound from Oath of Moment because they're a Codex Divergent chapter. I do understand that, and I understand that people can find it kind of lazy of GW, if you want to say that, of taking Righteous Crusaders and just making it their army rule. But given what the effects of their army rule are, I think it's actually pretty substantial. And now, am I going to say that it's outright more powerful than Oath of Moment? No, I don't think so at all. But it's also entirely situational. If in your local play group you fight a lot of Thousand Suns or Librarius Conclave armies of other Space Marines, or the new Cabal of Sorcerers detachment, Chaos Space Marines, or you just a lot of Psychers in general, then okay, cool. With the Black Templars army rule, you can have better anti-Psyker capabilities for your units. If you're finding yourself in a position to where you're fighting a lot of tough things like knights or necrons or custodes, then accept any challenge no matter the odds is good, because hey, your chain swords, which now have sustained hits 1, are never going to be wounding on 6s. That's really, really good, right? It means that even with chain swords, and if you do some certain pairings and character pairings, you can have a mob of guys who don't have particularly strong weapons start chopping at the heels of a Titan or a Knight and cut it down to size. Granted, Black Templars have always been able to do this even in their index, from what I've known and from what I've seen of like games online. But I find that really cool. And if you have an issue of you don't really have anyone who is sitting around on objectives, but you have a tide of guys running through, you could alternatively in that match decide, when the match is starting out, I don't need the anti-psyker. I don't need the additional +1 to wound if the strength is equal to or lower than the toughness of a unit I'm attacking. Give them all sticky objective. All your infantry sticky objective. That's pretty good. And that's overall like pretty solid. It's situational, and that's something I like about the new army rule, is that it's depending on the kind of games you find yourself in and what you are playing against, you can play it out a little differently every time. If in your local meta you're fighting a lot of tough armies like Necrons, Custodes, Knights, or really vehicle heavy lists, then yeah, the +1 to wound rule in their army is really strong. If you're fighting a lot of Psychers, then anti-Psyker is probably going to be pretty strong. It's really solid. Moving away from their army role, talking about the two new units being the Execrator Chaplain and the Crusade Ancient, I think that overall, for what they are, they're very interesting models. I think that there definitely is some room that can be had, and some interest in running them around together. And granted, I understand that. Oh, if you want to make the one-to-one comparison of an execrator chaplain to a standard chaplain, then it's one makes the other redundant, especially if you take a certain detachment. Yeah, right. That's sure. That's probably going to end up being problematic, or a little less exciting. And then the Crusade Ancient being another ancient bearing character, I don't personally have an issue with that. I think the idea of there being a detachment that is all about ancients, that's cool, especially if the Crusade Ancient, like the Execrator Chaplain, are more combat oriented characters. They're not just characters that are there to provide a buff in some way, like how chaplains and ancients typically are. It's more of, no, these guys are here to throw hands, right? Yeah, they do some things, they do have an auxiliary effect of some sense, but they're here to kind of tussle. Regardless as to whether it's not how effective that is, that's a completely different thing. And then loosely touching on some of the changes that they've made to the other like big star units, and these are more units that I personally have any interest in or care about more than anything. So I'm not going to be bringing up Grimaldus or Helbrecht. I do know that Grimaldus lost his 5-up Feel No Pain on one of his relics that he can have around. I've heard people scream about how that makes Grimaldus bad. I know it's a nerf. I know it's substantial. It's going to really hurt. I don't think that's going to absolutely kill his use case as a character. Granted, I don't know from first-hand experience how much of a big substantial difference it's going to make. But if his points are going down accordingly, which I believe they are, then hey, right? He's becoming cheaper, and that's reflective of him being less powerful. In the case of Helbrecht, if Helbrecht is still doing Helbrecht things and is able to really make things hit hard, and you can throw him with some Crusaders or Sword Brethren into a Knight, and they can chop it to size in turn, in 1 or 2 turns, and they don't die, then cool. Helbrecht isn't changing basically that much, other than maybe going up or down in points costs. With regards to some changes I've seen people talk about, either positively or negatively, that more pertain to me because these are personally the 2 units that I really like. I've really gravitated towards. I've always liked the look of, and they just kind of come off as like based and badass, are the Emperor's Champion and the Sword Brethren. Sword Brethren getting their Blade Guard veteran style ability taken away does suck. Don't get me wrong. When you look at it, taking away something feels worse, is going to feel and look worse than giving them something back. But we have to look at it in the sense of, well, what are they getting in place of that? If memory serves me correctly, their new ability is something to the effect of, if a unit that they're engaged with falls back, they can make a normal move up to 6 inches to chase after them, or to reposition and hide somewhere. That's not bad. If you're pressing the advance, if you're really wanting to just, purge these heretics or these Xenos, then yeah, you get these Sword Brethren fully ran in, bang, bang, boom. Yeah, they lost their +1 to damage or +1 to the attack's characteristics, but then we look at, okay, well, what about their war gear? What has changed with that? Or at least what, in the melee side of things, what has changed with that? Their chain swords are still chain swords. They still have 5 attacks, I believe. They now have sustained hits 1, so that hasn't changed other than, okay, you can't make chain swords be damage 2. And then with power swords, all Sword Brethren have Mastercrafted power swords, so now those all do 2 damage, and they have lethal hits. So in my humble opinion, them losing their Blade Guard veteran style ability does suck, but realistically isn't all that impactful compared to maybe how it once was. The Emperor's Champion being made a non-epic hero, so he can take enhancements, is really, really good. And this is especially taking into consideration playing Black Templars in detachments like Gladius Task Force or Vanguard Spearhead or Storm Host or Stormlance. He has Lone Op now, so you can run him by himself, kind of treat him like a combi weapon lieutenant. he, anti-character 5 up on his black sword. He still has precision. He can now blank damage that isn't just from melee attacks. Like, all that's really substantial. It makes him overall really good. You can only still take one of him, which is like, let me take more of my favorite boy. But overall, I think for the changes, just going briefly over it, I think they're overall pretty good or look interesting. And granted, for all we know, from what people have seen, these could come across as really bad, or they look bad, or they feel bad, but it could be completely different, especially when you start talking about people who really know what they're doing with playing 40k, playing Black Templars or playing Space Marine. But overall, and with that, guys, that is my kind of quick, dirty thoughts on the Codex. I definitely will be making another video giving my thoughts on playing the Black Templars, since when their Codex does come out and the rules and their online rules come out and all that, I'm going to be making a list. I'm going to be making an army list for Black Templars. I really do want to play them. They were originally the army I wanted to get into first, because I love how they look. Right, that sounds funny when I've talked about Black Templars and Blood Angels have been tied for my favorite Space Marine army list, but Black Templars, they look sick, and in terms of the general little bits of lore I do know of them, they're fucking cool. But feel free to comment down below what your thoughts are on the Black Templars Codex. Do you like the changes that they have made? Do you think some of the changes are unnecessary? As someone who doesn't have a whole lot of experience, if any experience playing them myself, it's always insightful to know. What kind of experiences have you had with them in their index? Right? Have you had funny haha experiences of just chopping a knight in half turn 1, or have you had bad experiences fighting them? Feel free to let me down in the comment section below. Like always, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. Feel free to like if you like the video, dislike if you dislike it. It's perfectly fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions and likes and dislikes. But with that, guys, hope you're having a great time wherever you find yourself, whether you're studying, at work, gaming. Hope you're having a great time. And if you're not, well, then I hope things can turn around, go for the better. But until the next time, I'll see you next time. Peace.